where does South Carolina have the advantage? Where they may be deficient? Where are the best matchups within the matchups in this game? So without further ado, guys, we will start at the quarterback position. It's been somewhat of a carousel for Vandy this season. A.J. Swan, Ken Seals, both have made contributions for the Doors under center this season, which has been, it's been somewhat of a surprise. And I don't necessarily think that you've seen the revolving door at quarterback because, Ken Seals has been terrible or A.J. Swan has been terrible. I just think you have to look at, guys, the supporting cast and the help or little help they've had around them. And so obviously, guys, when all else fails, what do? Right? Well, let's change the quarterback, see if we can spark something. A.J. Swan has thrown for 1,290 yards, 11 touchdowns, 7 interceptions. Meanwhile, Ken Seals has gone for 1,018 yards, 9 touchdowns, 4 interceptions. So neither guy has been great, I would say, but neither guy has been terrible either. They've both just kind of been okay, especially when you consider what they have to work with. On the other side, there's Spencer Rattler, who at home especially, guys, has been incredible. Gamecocks get the easy nod here at the quarterback position. Spencer Rattler, I expect more of the same from him at the home field, under the home lights, if you will. And Vandy, I mean, who knows, guys, what they've got at the quarterback position. Also, Walter Taylor has played for them even this season. So I don't know if Vandy really knows what they're doing at the quarterback position. Meanwhile, South Carolina solidified there. They get the easy nod at QB. At the running back position, this is one, guys, I can probably count on one hand how many times I've given South Carolina the nod here. I don't even know if I have all year, actually, to be honest with you. I'm giving the Gamecocks a nod at running back this week, believe it or not. You look at what Vandy has. Cedric Alexander is their leading ball carrier. 74 carries, 291 yards at this point, 3.9 yards per carry, and 4 touchdowns. Patrick Smith, RB2 for them, and he is their second leading rusher. 66 carries, 277 yards, 4.2 yards per carry, and 2 touchdowns. But there's nothing really there, guys, in my opinion, that jumps off the page to you. And you look at what South Carolina has in Mario Anderson, their number 2 guy in Juju McDowell. I think South Carolina's 1-2 punch is actually better and more explosive than what Vandy features. So for the first time in a while, maybe all season, guys, I'd have to go back and look at it. I am giving the Gamecocks the nod at the running back position. I like Anderson more than Alexander. And again, I like the depth overall and the 1-2 punch that South Carolina will feature more than what Vandy will feature. So give the Gamecocks the nod at the running back position. We move to wide receiver. And this is probably where we're going to have our first bit of disagreement, if you will. Because you look at South Carolina, it's Xavier Legette, 217 yards last weekend, right, what he's doing. But my biggest thing is this, guys. Who's after him? At this point, who is after Xavier Legette? There's bodies, there's names, but are there real week in, week out contributors? Are there contributors that you can depend on? I don't think you can say the answer is yes to that question. I mean, Nick Harbor's got potential. Amarian Brown's got some potential. He can do some things. Omega Blake has unfortunately kind of become a non-factor. Luke Doty's become a complete non-factor. Eddie Lewis hasn't really been the guy we thought he'd be coming from Memphis. Really, the second option in the passing game for Spencer Rattler has been Trey Knox. It's been Joshua Simon. It's been the tight end position. So Xavier Legette, one of the best, if not the best, in the SEC, guys. That obviously gives this room a huge boost. But then you look at Vanderbilt, guys, and you really, for everything Vanderbilt is not, for all of the ways that their roster is lacking and that their roster is deficient, you really got to put some respect on the duo that is Will Sheppard and Jaden McGowan leading the way. Will Sheppard especially, guys. 44 catches, 634 yards. This man has 8 touchdowns, to his credit. Will Shepherd has been fantastic for them, truly. And he's a big-time weapon. He's not just Vandy good. Like, he's really, really good. Jaden McGowan right behind him, 35 for 380. Does not have a touchdown catch, but still very efficient, effective week in, week out. London Humphreys also behind them, 16 for 380, 4 touchdowns to his credit. Junior Sherrill, 15 for 236, 2 touchdowns to his credit. So I think Vandy, I like the duo of Shepherd and McGowan. I think they're deeper. They don't have a player like Xavier Legette. I'm going with a push here. I'm not going to give Vandy the nod, but I'm going to go with the push, and I think the push is well-deserved. Again, I love the duo of Shepherd and McGowan. If Vandy's going to stay in this game, if they're going to give South Carolina some fits, it's going to be because of those two guys. So I'm going push at wide receiver. Xavier Legette on the South Carolina side leading the way, kind of doing it all by himself at that position. Vandy's got a couple of dudes led by Shepherd and McGowan that I really like, and I think will flash on Saturday. To the tight end position we go, guys. I give South Carolina the nod. Vandy doesn't use the tight end a whole lot in this offense. Justin Ball is their leader, 12 catches, 104, a touchdown. Their second leading. Logan Kyle, 9 for 83. Meanwhile, you've got the duo of Trey Knox, Joshua Simon. Trey Knox has become, guys, a real weapon in this Gamecocks offense. I know that he's questionable this week. We'll see if he goes. But Joshua Simon's been really, really good to his credit. Even if it was just Joshua Simon that we were comparing. Again, Vanderbilt just doesn't really feature their tight ends a whole lot. So I do give the Gamecocks the nod at the tight end spot going into this game. We move to offensive line. And this is one, guys, last week, I believe I gave Jacksonville State the nod on the offensive line. Some people were upset at that. Others understood. And you look at this game, guys, South Carolina, I mean, you look at the numbers, guys, it's crazy, right? The Gamecocks have surrendered 37 sacks to this point. 37 sacks. Like, that's a disgusting number, first off. It's almost hard to believe. 37 sacks. The Gamecocks haven't ran it much better. One of the worst in the SEC. But you know who's behind them, guys? You know who's behind them? The Vanderbilt Commodores, who are running the football for just 93 yards per game. And the rushing yardage in SEC play is even worse. They have not allowed opponents to get to the quarterback quite as much. Only 24 sacks, I believe it is, allowed. I'm going with a push at the offensive line, believe it or not, because I think South Carolina runs it a little bit more effectively than Vandy does. I think Vandy protects the quarterback slightly better. You factor all that in, I think it's about even. Again, these are two of the worst offensive lines, probably the two worst offensive lines in the SEC. They are very similar to each other, unfortunately, which says a lot about what the state of the Gamecocks offensive line, I should say that. But I am going push at the offensive line. I think it's going to be a pair of porous groups taking the field on Saturday, which we'll see which one holds up more effectively. Guys, to the defensive side of the football we go. The defensive line specifically. You know, South Carolina, to be fair, has done a much better job stopping the run this season, right? Done a much better job. Now, is a lot of that because teams are throwing the football all over them? Sure, that's probably part of it. We saw Jacksonville State literally last week run for over 200 yards in that football game. But guys, you look at the numbers, you look at Vandy. 20 sacks to their credit. Okay, more than South Carolina. But they are allowing 180 yards per game on the ground. Guys, this is a bad Vanderbilt defense. I'm going to go ahead and spoil it for you. This is a bad Vandy defense across the board. They don't do much of anything all that well. I'm going to give South Carolina the nod when it comes to the defensive line. The Gamecocks D-line, it's a lesser of two evils thing. It's not that South Carolina's D-line's head and shoulders above and Vandy's D-line doesn't stack up. But their defensive front hadn't stopped anybody, man. They don't get after the quarterback a ton. Again, 20 sacks is okay. I mean, South Carolina, guys, is worse. I think the Gamecocks only have like 17 sacks to their credit this year. But they're doing a much better job, to their credit, stopping the run. I mean, Vandy, you can say, sure, teams have passed on South Carolina, but teams have passed on Vandy too. And they still can't stop the run. So I'm going to go defensive line. I'm going to go South Carolina here, give them the favor, but again, a slight edge over Vandy. To the linebacker position we go. Guys, South Carolina's linebacker play last week was horrific. I mean, I know the whole feel-good thing with Stone Blanton, and it's so funny how people wanted to like come at me and come at others for criticisms during the game. Look, that'll show you the pick six. That'll show you. No, two things can be true. Stone Blanton, that was a great moment for him, man. I'm so happy he got that pick six, and that's great. You won the ball game. He also was abysmal. I mean, he was terrible. He was flat out god-awful. I saw the back of 52's jersey all day long. And I mean, to my credit, I didn't call him out by name on the timeline, but I said 52's seen better days. And I stand by that. Both can be true, right? The Gamecocks linebacker play was terrible. Debo Williams missing tackles left and right. Debo Williams plays with heart. That's the best thing you can say about Debo Williams. He's a leader on that football team. That's a great thing too. But South Carolina, I mean, linebackers just an eyesore yet again. And you look at Vandy, their best players on their defense are at the linebacker position. Langston Patterson, 59 total tackles. He leads their team, a sack. He's been really good for them this year. One forced fumble to his credit. C.J. Taylor, his counterpart, 52 total tackles, 3 sacks to his credit. A couple tackles for loss as well. Ethan Barr at the linebacker position, 45 tackles, a sack to his credit also. Their linebacker group, guys, I will say, Vandy's linebacker group is solid. It is the best unit on their defense, and I'm giving Vanderbilt the nod at the linebacker position. The Gamecocks have got to solve linebacker through recruiting and through the portal also. Like this to me, I look at this is a portal need for South Carolina. There's no question. This is a portal need for the Gamecocks. They've got to shore this up through the transfer portal because it's just not good enough. It's just not good enough. I mean, and again, after that performance I watched last week, what I watched Stone Blanton do and Debo Williams do in I can't give them a nod at all, guys. I have no confidence in the Gamecocks linebackers coming in this football game. So Vanderbilt gets the nod there. At defensive back, this really is the battle of mid, man. This game between South Carolina and Vandy. It is the battle of mid in so many ways. And this is yet again another example. Two of the worst secondaries in the SEC. I don't have the stats pulled up in front of me, but I'd be willing to bet you they're the two worst. They're the two worst. Vanderbilt has not done a great job stopping anyone through the air, allowing over 255 yards per game passing. Haven't been able to stop anybody, man. I mean, again, Vandy's defense, they don't do much of anything well. Now, they've got some talent in the back end. I'm not going to say they don't have some talent. Jalen Mahoney's a good player. DeRicky Wright at safety's a good player, right? Savion Riley, solid. Outside of that, it's kind of a mixed bag of what you're getting. Meanwhile, of course, guys, the Gamecocks, I mean, Marcellus Dial and Unfortunate were abysmal last week. Nicky Manwari and DQ Smith have been underwhelming. The nickel spot's been a disaster. I will say, though, I don't feel confident giving either side the nod here. Because you know what? Neither side deserves it. Flat out. Neither side deserves it. Neither side deserves the recognition of being superior to the other. So I'm going push in the secondary. I'm going push at defensive back. Both of these units are terrible. That's it. That's it. To kicker and punter we go. I give South Carolina the nod here, guys. Vanderbilt's got a fantastic punter. They really do. But they have been not all that great kicking field goals. Jacob Borsila is their kicker. He struggled somewhat. 6 of 9 this year, 2 of 4 from 40 to 49. Again, they got one of the best punters in college football, but, I do think you look at the punters, I would say those two were even. I would take Mitch Jeter over what they've got at the kicker spot. I am going to give South Carolina the nod at kicker and punter. And finally, guys, to coaching we go. This caused a stir last week. Coaching caused a stir when I gave Jacksonville State the nod, right? Rich Rodriguez and staff. People saying, Chris, no way, man. This was a decade ago. I could see it. It's always funny. On a side note, it's always funny how I'll do these. And I'll have one that, I give the nod to the other side and people just lose their minds. And then the game plays out, especially when it's coaching. The game plays out and people are like, oh, my, all the criticisms and people are upset. And I'm like, I told you. Like, that being said, though, I do give South Carolina the nod when it comes to coaching. I do. And I like Clark Lee a lot. I'm a Clark Lee guy. And Clark Lee's in a really tough situation, man, trying to turn Vanderbilt football around and get them to respectability, right? Get them to, I think the goal for Vandy football, if you can, over the course of a decade, 50% of those years reach a bowl game, maybe 70%, that might be asking too much. If you can reach a bowl game at Vanderbilt, like you are doing really well, right? And he's facing an uphill battle from facilities, which they are upgrading, but NIL from folks I've talked to. I mean, there's just a lot of things they're dealing with. But I am going to give Shane Beamer and company the nod. It's been a tough year, guys. Shane Beamer has gone viral for all the wrong reasons week after week after week. But I still believe in Shane Beamer more than I believe in Clark Lee. And I believe in this Gamecocks coaching staff more than I believe in what Vanderbilt's got on their sideline, right? I will say Clark Lee, I think, has actually done a pretty damn good job coaching against the Gamecocks. Because, guys, you think about it. In 2 matchups, South Carolina has been the better football team, like the more superior, talented football team. But all that Shane Beamer's got over Clark Lee is a 1-point win and an 11-point win. It has not been the blowouts that many were expecting. So I'll give Clark Lee credit there in this series, but I do give Shane Beamer, that South Carolina coaching staff, the nod. And as you can tell, the Gamecocks, as they look to make it 15 in a row against Vandy, should have a great opportunity to do so.